The Korean Mafia boss hadn't spoken a single word in 20 years. Doctors failed. Family gave up. Then a black waitress did something no one could explain. The boardroom fell into suffocating silence as Kwon Sin entered. 28 years old, moving like a predator in a three-piece Tom Ford suit that cost more than most people's cars, he commanded absolute attention without uttering a single word. His second-in-command, Park Jae-sung, stood immediately, tablet in hand, ready to be his voice as always. Around the table, 6 nervous men, leaders of smaller operations who'd been foolish enough to skim from the Kwon family's territory, watched as Sin took his seat at the head. He didn't look at them, didn't acknowledge their existence, just pulled out his phone and began typing with surgical precision. Jae-sung's phone buzzed. He read the message, then spoke in accented English. Mr. Kwon wants to know which of you would like to explain first. Who authorized the movement of product through his ports without proper tribute? The silence stretched. Sin's dark eyes, cold, calculating, utterly devoid of mercy, swept across each face. One man, bolder or more desperate than the others, cleared his throat. Mr. Kwon, with all due respect, we didn't think... Sin's hand moved. A single gesture. Jae-sung stepped forward and placed a folder in front of the speaker. Inside were photographs. The man's face drained of color. Your daughter, Jae-sung translated from Sin's rapid texting. Lovely girl. 17, yes? Planning to attend UCLA in the fall. It would be unfortunate if anything disrupted those plans. The threat hung in the air, unspoken but crystal clear. Sin stood, buttoning his jacket with movements that were almost elegant. He typed one more message. Jae-sung read it aloud. You have 48 hours to make this right. After that, I stop being reasonable. Sin walked out, leaving 6 men sweating in expensive chairs, and Jae-sung to handle the details. This was how Kwon Sin ran Los Angeles's most powerful Korean criminal empire, with silence that spoke louder than any words. In the elevator down to street level, Jae-sung studied his boss's profile. They'd known each other since childhood, since before the incident that had stolen Sin's voice. You're getting worse, he said in Korean, knowing Sin could hear him even if he couldn't respond verbally. More isolated, more... He trailed off as Sin's eyes cut to him, sharp with warning. Sin's fingers moved across his phone. I don't need a therapist, Jae-sung. I need results. You need a life, Jae-sung muttered, but fell silent as they exited into the Los Angeles afternoon. A black Bentley waited at the curb, driver holding the door. Sin slid inside, already checking messages, always working, always moving, never stopping long enough to feel the silence that had consumed him for 20 years. Rita Okonkwo was having the kind of day that made her question every life choice that had led her to this moment. The breakfast rush at Stella's diner had been chaos. A broken coffee machine, 2 no-show servers, and a party of 12 who'd ordered everything on the menu and then complained about the wait. Now at 2 p.m., she was cleaning up syrup from a table where someone's toddler had apparently tried to bathe in it. Rita! The voice belonged to Tommy, the line cook who'd been hitting on her unsuccessfully for 6 months. Table 9 needs you. Some suit who looks like he owns half the city. Rita glanced up, saw the man sitting alone in the corner booth, and felt something skip in her chest. He was Korean, she thought, though she'd learned not to assume. Mid-20s, maybe early 30s. Wearing a suit that looked obscenely expensive for a diner in Inglewood. And there was something about the way he sat, perfectly still, watching everything, that made her instincts prickle. She grabbed her notepad and headed over, pasting on her customer service smile. The one that hid the exhaustion and the student loan debt, and the fact that she was 26 with a nursing degree she couldn't afford to complete. Hey there, what can I get you? The man looked up and Rita's breath caught. Jesus, he was beautiful. Sharp features, dark eyes that seemed to see straight through her, and a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. But he didn't speak, just studied her like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Sir, are you ready to order? Still nothing. Rita felt a flash of irritation. Was he being rude or... Wait. She noticed the way his attention fixed on her lips when she spoke. The slight tilt of his head. Oh, she said softer now. Do you need a minute with the menu or... He pulled out his phone, typed something, and turned the screen toward her. Coffee, black, and whatever you recommend. Rita smiled, genuine this time. Not much of a talker, huh? That's okay. I talk enough for both of us. She scribbled on her pad. I'm thinking the Stella's special, eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast. It's not fancy, but Tommy back there makes a mean breakfast. Sound good? The man nodded once. Brief. Economical. But something in his eyes had shifted, just slightly, like she'd surprised him. As she walked away, Rita felt his gaze following her. Not creepy, just intense, focused. She'd worked in customer service long enough to know the difference between men who looked at her like she was a piece of meat and men who actually saw her. This one was the latter, which was somehow more unsettling. Who's the guy? Her coworker Destiny asked, refilling ketchup bottles at the server station. I don't know. Doesn't talk. Types everything on his phone. Ooh, mysterious. Destiny waggled her eyebrows. And fine as hell. You should get his number. I should get him his breakfast, Rita corrected, but she was smiling despite herself. She brought out the food 10 minutes later, setting it down with practiced efficiency. Careful. Plate's hot. Need anything else? The man she really needed to get his name shook his head. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone again, typed, and showed her. Thank you, Rita. She glanced at her name tag, then back at him. You're welcome, mister. He hesitated. For a moment, she thought he might type his name. Instead, he just nodded again and turned his attention to the food. Weird, but Rita had served weirder. She left him to eat, dealing with the steady stream of afternoon customers, but she kept noticing him in her peripheral vision. The way he ate with perfect precision, how he sat with his back to the wall, watching the door. The fact that every time the diner door opened, his entire body tensed slightly before relaxing when he assessed no threat. This man was dangerous. Rita knew it in her bones. Knew it the way she knew when a patient was about to code, back when she'd done her clinical rotations. Knew it the way she'd learned to recognize trouble growing up in South Central. But dangerous didn't necessarily mean bad, just complicated. When she brought the check, modest, maybe $20, he placed a $100 bill on top without looking at it. Rita's eyes widened. Sir, this is way too much. Let me get your change. He was already standing, buttoning his jacket. He typed on his phone. Keep it. Your service was excellent. Then he was walking toward the door, moving with that same predatory grace she'd noticed earlier. Wait, Rita called out, surprising herself. He paused, turned. She rushed over, holding out the bill. I appreciate it, really, but I can't take this. It's not right. For the first time, she saw something like emotion flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe, or confusion. Like he couldn't quite figure out why she was refusing free money. He typed, Why not? Because I didn't earn it. I poured coffee and brought you eggs. That's not worth $80. She held it out more firmly. Take it back, or come back and eat here 4 more times. Then we'll be even. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. He typed, You're unusual. You're one to talk, mystery man. This time he did smile. Small, brief, but real. He took the bill back, then pulled out his wallet and left a 20 instead. Appropriate. Normal. He nodded to her, some kind of acknowledgement she didn't quite understand, and left. Rita watched him go, watched him slide into a Bentley that definitely didn't belong in this neighborhood. Watched the car pull away with the smooth silence of serious money. Girl, Destiny appeared at her elbow. Did you just turn down an $80 tip? He'll be back, Rita said, not knowing why she was so certain. But she was. Something in the way he looked at her, like she'd presented him with a puzzle he needed to solve. And when he comes back, I want it to be because he wants to, not because he overpaid. Destiny shook her head. You're crazy, but I respect it. Rita just smiled and went back to work, but she caught herself looking at the door more often than usual for the rest of her shift, wondering if the mysterious man in the expensive suit would keep his word and come back. Quan Sin sat in his office on the 40th floor of a building he owned in downtown LA, staring at the traffic below without really seeing it. His mind was still in that diner, still on the waitress, with the bright smile and the strange integrity. Rita. He'd made it his business to know everything about the people he encountered, especially those who surprised him. Jae Sung entered without knocking, one of the few privileges of their long friendship. You're thinking about her. It wasn't a question. Sin didn't bother responding, just raised an eyebrow. The waitress, Rita Okonkwo, 26, Nursing student, dropped out 3 years ago when her mother got sick. Works double shifts to pay medical bills. Lives alone in a one-bedroom in Inglewood. No criminal record. No connections to any of our rivals. She's nobody. Sin's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone. She's not nobody. You know what I mean. Jae-sung sat on the edge of the desk, studying his boss with the familiarity of someone who'd known him since they were children. Why the interest? You meet hundreds of people every week. Sin's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. How could he explain that something about Rita had cut through the fog that had surrounded him for 20 years? That her genuine smile and her refusal of easy money had made him feel something other than the cold calculation that ruled his life? She looked at me like I was human, he finally typed. Not a weapon, not a boss, just a person. Jae-sung's expression softened. Sin, you can't. I'm not doing anything, just thinking. But they both knew that was a lie, because Sin had already decided he was going back to that diner, had already started wondering what it would be like to have someone in his life who didn't know about the empire he'd built. The blood on his hands, the silence that had defined him for 2 decades. He returned the next day, and the day after that, always sitting in the same booth, always ordering the same thing, and always Rita served him with that bright, genuine smile that made something in his chest ache. She started calling him Mystery Man when he still wouldn't type his name, started recommending different menu items, laughing when he'd nod seriously and order whatever she suggested, started telling him stories about her day while he ate, not seeming to mind that he never responded verbally. So my neighbor Mrs. Chen, she's like 90 and fierce as hell. She caught these kids trying to steal packages from our building, Rita said on his 5th visit, refilling his coffee. And instead of calling the cops, she invited them in and made them help her reorganize her closet for 3 hours. Said if they had that much energy for crime, they could use it productively. Sin found himself almost smiling again. He typed, effective punishment. Right, I was dying. These tough guys looking terrified of this tiny old lady with a feather duster. Rita laughed, and the sound did something strange to Sin's carefully controlled heartbeat. Anyway, how was your day? Conquer any corporate empires? Negotiate any hostile takeovers? She was joking. She had no idea how close to the truth she was. Sin typed, boring meetings. The usual. Not technically a lie. Well, at least you get to wear nice suits to your boring meetings. I get to wear this flattering polyester number. She gestured at her uniform, a teal dress that had seen better days. Though I will say the pockets are excellent. I can fit like 6 pens and a whole notepad in here. Very practical. You make it look good, Sin typed before he could stop himself. Rita's eyes widened slightly. A faint blush colored her dark cheeks. Well, thank you, Mystery Man. That's very sweet. She tucked a stray curl behind her ear, suddenly seeming younger than her 26 years. Vulnerable in a way that made Sin want to both protect her and run far away before he could damage something so genuine. Over the next 2 weeks, their interactions developed a rhythm. Sin would come in around 2 p.m., after the lunch rush, but before dinner prep. Rita would bring him coffee and whatever she'd decided he needed to try that day. She'd talk while he ate, sharing pieces of her life, her mother's improving health, her dreams of finishing her nursing degree, her frustration with her broken down car that needed a new transmission she couldn't afford. And Sin would listen, really listen, type occasional responses that made her laugh or think. Learn the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled for real versus the customer service smile she used for difficult patrons. Notice how she always checked on the elderly customers first, how she slipped extra bacon to the single dad with 3 kids, how she treated everyone with dignity regardless of how they treated her. He found himself looking forward to these visits with an anticipation that was foreign to him. Found himself thinking about what to type, what might make her smile. Found himself wanting to tell her things he'd never told anyone, about the weight of leadership, the loneliness of silence, the way the world looked from inside his self, imposed isolation, but he didn't, because Rita knew him as a quiet businessman who liked his coffee, black and his eggs over easy. She didn't know about the empire, the violence, the blood, and Sin wanted, needed, to keep it that way. To have this one pure thing in his life that wasn't touched by the darkness he carried. Until the day everything changed. It started normally enough. Sin arrived at his usual time, slid into his usual booth. But Rita looked distracted when she came over, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Hey, mystery man, the usual?" He nodded but typed. "Are you okay?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Yeah, just tired. Long night. Mom had a bad spell. Her lungs, you know. And we were in the ER until 4 a.m. But she's okay now, so it's fine." It wasn't fine. Sin could see the exhaustion in every line of her body, the worry she was trying to hide. He typed, "You should go home. Rest." "Can't. Need the money. And we're short-staffed." She forced a brighter smile. "Besides, you're here. Can't disappoint my favorite customer." Something warm bloomed in Sin's chest at being called her favorite, but it was quickly overtaken by concern as he watched her move through her shift, slower than usual, her shoulders tight with tension. Then halfway through his meal, Rita's hand started shaking, just slightly at first but then more violently as she tried to pour coffee for another table. She fumbled the pot, spilling hot liquid across the table in her own arm. The diner went quiet for a moment as she gasped, dropping the pot. Sin was out of his seat in an instant, crossing the diner floor in 3 long strides. He took her arm gently, ignoring the customers staring. The burn wasn't bad, just red skin, not blistering. But Rita was hyperventilating, eyes wide with panic. He pulled her toward his booth, guiding her to sit. Then he pulled out his phone. "Breathe with me. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. He placed her hand on his chest so she could feel the rhythm of his breathing. Rita's eyes locked on his, dark and frightened and trusting in a way that made his heart clench. They breathed together. In, hold, out. In, hold, out. Slowly her hands stopped shaking. The color returned to her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what happened. I just suddenly felt like I couldn't breathe, like the walls were closing in." Sin typed one-handed, his other hand still covering hers. "Panic attack. You're exhausted and worried and running on fumes. Your body is telling you to stop." "I can't stop. I need this job. Mom's bills." "Take a break. 15 minutes. Sit here. I'll handle your tables." Rita's laugh was watery. You don't work here?" But Sin was already standing, pulling on the server's apron she'd left on the booth seat. He caught Destiny's eye across the diner, pointed at Rita, then at himself, then at the tables. Destiny's eyebrows shot up, but she nodded, understanding somehow. And then Kwan Sin, head of the most powerful Korean crime family in Los Angeles, began waiting tables in a diner in Inglewood. He couldn't speak to the customers, but his phone worked fine. He'd take orders via text, show them the screen, somehow make it work with a combination of gestures and typed words and sheer force of presence that made people not question this unusual arrangement. Rita watched from the booth, torn between mortification and something that felt dangerously like affection, as her mysterious regular customer competently juggled 4 tables, remembered complex orders, and charmed an elderly couple with his silent efficiency. "Your boyfriend is something else," Destiny said, sliding into the booth next to Rita. "He's not my boyfriend. I don't even know his name. Girl, that man just put on an apron and started waiting tables so you could breathe. I don't care what you call him. That's love." Rita's heart skipped. "It's not. We barely know each other." "Maybe, but he knows you well enough to recognize a panic attack, well enough to know exactly how to help, and well enough to literally step into your shoes without hesitation." Destiny squeezed her hand. "Don't let this one go." 15 minutes later, Sin returned to the booth, removing the apron with the same precision he used for everything. He'd made $40 in tips, which he added to Rita's jar without comment. He typed, "Better?" "Yeah." Rita's voice was soft. "Thank you. Nobody's ever done something like that for me before." "You needed help. I could help. Simple." "It's not simple. You're wearing a suit that probably costs more than I make in a month, and you just served coffee and eggs to make sure I could catch my breath. That's not simple. That's..." She trailed off, not sure how to finish. "That's extraordinary. That's terrifying. That's making me feel things I have no business feeling for a man whose name I don't even know." Sin could have left it there, should have left it there. Instead, he typed, "Kwan Sin, my name." Rita's face broke into a genuine smile, wide and bright and beautiful. "Kwan Sin," she repeated, testing the syllables. "Nice to finally meet you. I'm Rita Okonkwo, but you probably already knew that from my name tag." "I did, but hearing you introduce yourself properly is better." They sat there for a moment, the diner chaos continuing around them, existing in a bubble of quiet understanding. Then Rita said, "Sin, I need to tell you something about why I had that panic attack." He waited, giving her space to continue. "My mom has pulmonary fibrosis. Her lungs are scarring, getting worse. The doctors say she needs a lung transplant, but the wait list is years long, and the cost..." Rita's voice cracked. "I dropped out of nursing school to take care of her. Thought it would be temporary, but it's been 3 years and I'm drowning. The bills, the treatments, watching her struggle to breathe every day." She wiped at her eyes, frustrated with herself. "Sorry, you don't need to hear all this." Sin's hand covered hers on the table. Warm, solid, real. He typed with his other hand. "I want to hear. All of it. Everything you need to say." And Rita, who'd learned to carry her burdens alone, who'd built walls around her heart to survive, found herself telling this silent stranger everything. About her father's death when she was 12, about putting herself through college while working full-time, about the guilt of resenting her mother's illness even while loving her desperately, about feeling like she was 26 going on 50, like youth and joy and possibility had passed her by. Sin listened to every word, typed careful responses that showed he truly heard her, and somewhere in that conversation, something shifted between them. A connection formed that went beyond customer and server, beyond stranger and stranger. Something real and terrifying and inevitable. Over the next month, Sin's visits became the highlight of Rita's day. They'd progressed from polite exchanges to genuine friendship, though Rita would be lying if she said friendship was all she felt. There was attraction there, sharp and undeniable, but also something deeper. A recognition, like their souls had been speaking the same language long before they met. Sin had started staying longer, sometimes until Rita's shift ended, when he'd walk her to her beat-up Honda and wait until it actually started before driving away in his Bentley. He'd started bringing her things, small gifts that showed he paid attention, a book by her favorite author, expensive coffee because he'd noticed her wince at the diner's burnt brew, once a pair of non-slip shoes in exactly her size because she'd mentioned her feet hurt. "You don't have to do this," Rita had said about the shoes, even as she was already trying them on. "You've already been too generous." "I want to," Sin had typed. "You work hard. You deserve good shoes." "Sin, these are Danskos. They're like $150. They're comfortable. That's what matters." And he looked at her with those intense dark eyes that made her feel seen in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Rita had worn them every shift since, and tried very hard not to think about what it meant that this man, this beautiful, mysterious, silent man, paid attention to details like her shoe size and her coffee preference and the way her eyes lit up when someone mentioned her favorite book. But she couldn't ignore it anymore the day Sin showed up with something bigger than coffee or shoes. He arrived during the morning rush, unusual for him. Rita was slammed, barely had time to bring him coffee, before rushing off to handle a table of rowdy businessmen. But when she finally had a moment to breathe, she found Sin sitting with his laptop open, typing furiously. "Sorry I've been MIA, she said, topping off his coffee. "Crazy morning." He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was information about a clinical trial for pulmonary fibrosis at Cedars Sinai Medical Center, with no cost to participants and potential priority listing for transplants if the treatment didn't work. Rita's breath caught. "Sin, what is this?" He typed on his phone. "I had my people research your mother's condition. This trial is accepting new participants. The doctor running it is a friend of a friend. I can make an introduction." "Your people?" Rita's mind was racing. "Sin, who are you? Really?" A pause, then, "Someone who cares about you, who wants to help. This is too much. I don't have any way to repay." "I'm not asking for repayment. I'm asking you to let me help." His eyes held hers, intense and sincere. "Please." Rita felt tears threatening. This man, this silent, beautiful man, had researched experimental treatments for a woman he'd never met because it would ease Rita's burden. Had used his mysterious connections to find hope where there had been only despair. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, yes, thank you. God, Sin, thank you so much." She wanted to hug him, to kiss him, to do something to express the overwhelming gratitude and affection, and something more that was threatening to spill over. Instead, she squeezed his hand tight. I don't know how to thank you. You just did, he typed. Now go call your mother. Tell her the good news. Rita did, rushing to the back room to make the call with shaking hands. Her mother's cautious hope, the way her voice strengthened when Rita explained the trial, it was everything. And when Rita returned to the floor 20 minutes later, eyes red but smile genuine, Sin was still there, waiting, always waiting for her. The trial was a success. Rita's mother was accepted, started treatment, began showing improvement within weeks. The clouds that had hung over Rita's life for 3 years started to lift. She could breathe again, could think about the future instead of just surviving the present. And at the center of that future, increasingly, was Sin. They'd graduated from diner visits to actual dates, though neither had explicitly called them that. Movies where Sin would type commentary that made Rita laugh, walks through Griffith Park where they'd sit and watch the sunset, late-night food truck adventures where Sin would try whatever Rita recommended, his face serious as he evaluated each new taste. Rita learned things about him, that he'd grown up in Koreatown, that his parents had died when he was young, that he'd taken over his family's business, some kind of import-export operation, at 21. That he collected art, donated anonymously to dozens of charities, and had a weakness for terrible action movies that he watched with scholarly concentration. But there were gaps in his story, things he didn't explain, like why he had people who could research medical trials, why he occasionally took calls that made his entire body go rigid with tension, why sometimes men in suits would approach him on the street, bow slightly, and walk away without Sin needing to say or type anything. Sin, Rita asked one night as they sat in his car outside her apartment, what do you really do? And don't say import-export. Nobody in legitimate import-export has the kind of resources you have. He'd gone very still, then typed slowly, if I told you, everything would change. Maybe I want things to change. Maybe I want to really know you, not just the parts you're willing to share. What if the parts I'm hiding are dark? What if you don't like what you find? Then I'll deal with it. But Sin, I'm falling for you. Have been for weeks. And I can't keep falling for someone I don't fully know. The confession hung between them. Rita waited, heart pounding, watching his face for a reaction. Finally, he typed, I'm falling for you too. Have been since you refused my $80 tip and looked at me like I was just a person worth knowing. Rita's breath caught. Then tell me, whatever it is, I can handle it. Can you? Can you handle knowing that I'm not a legitimate businessman? That my family built an empire on blood and fear? That I run operations that exist in shadows? That I make decisions that sometimes cost lives? He showed her the screen, watching her face carefully. Rita read the words, read them again. Her mind put together the pieces, the deference from strangers, the resources, the power, the way Sin moved through the world like he owned it. You're telling me you're a criminal. I'm telling you I'm the head of a criminal organization, the Korean Mafia. Everything you've heard about, feared about, men like me, it's all true. She should have run, should have gotten out of the car and never looked back. Instead, she asked, have you ever hurt anyone who didn't deserve it? He typed without hesitation. No. Do you hurt children? Innocent people? Never. We have rules, lines we don't cross. And the charity work? The donations? Are those real? Very real. My parents believed in giving back. I honor that. Rita sat with this new information, feeling the weight of it. The man she'd been falling for was dangerous, powerful in ways she'd only imagined in movies. But he was also the man who'd learned her coffee order, who'd researched treatments for her mother, who'd put on an apron and waited tables so she could breathe. I don't know if I can do this, she said honestly. I don't know if I'm strong enough to be with someone in your world. I don't want you in my world, Sin typed quickly. I want to build something separate, something clean, with you. Can you do that? Can you really separate your life into compartments like that? I can try. For you, I'll try anything. He reached across the console, cupped her face gently. But Rita, if you need to walk away, I'll understand. I'll hate it, but I'll understand. Rita looked into his eyes, those dark, intense eyes that had first caught her attention months ago. Saw the vulnerability there, the fear of losing her, the genuine care, and she made a decision that would change everything. I'm not walking away, But Sin, if we do this, if we really try, I need honesty. Always, about everything. Can you promise me that? He nodded, typed, I promise. Complete honesty. Starting now. Okay, then tell me why you don't talk. Not can't, don't. I've seen you on phone calls. I know you can make sounds. So why the silence? Sin's face went very still. It was a long moment before he started typing, and when he did, his fingers moved slowly, like each word cost him. 20 years ago, when I was 8, my brother and I were in a car accident. Someone tried to kill my father. We were collateral damage. Rita's hand found his, squeezed tight. The car went off a bridge. My brother Dal Sung, he was 10. He was trapped in his seatbelt, upside down, screaming. The car was filling with water. I tried to save him. Tried so hard. But I was 8 and small, and the water was so cold. Tears were running down Sin's face now, silent and devastating. He drowned while I screamed his name over and over. And when they finally pulled us out, pulled me out alive and him out dead, I couldn't speak anymore. The doctors said it was psychogenic, trauma-induced mutism, that physically, my vocal cords were fine, but something in my brain, some protective mechanism, had shut down my ability to speak. They said it might be temporary. That was 20 years ago. Rita was crying now too, her heart breaking for the 8-year-old boy who'd lost his voice along with his brother. Oh, Sin, I'm so sorry. I learned to live with it, to communicate other ways. My parents died 3 years later. Rivals finished what they started. And I inherited everything at 11 years old. Jai Sung's family helped me, trained me, kept me alive until I was old enough to truly lead. And by then, the silence had become part of who I was. My weapon, my armor. People fear what they can't hear, can't predict. But you hate it, Rita said softly. Don't you? The silence. Every day, he typed. Every day I want to tell you, and I love you with my voice instead of my fingers. Want to laugh at your jokes out loud instead of just smiling. Want to sing, argue, shout, whisper. But I can't. Won't. It's gone too deep now. 20 years of silence. I don't know if I remember how. Rita wiped her eyes, mind racing. She'd studied psychological trauma in nursing school. Knew about conversion disorders, about how the brain protected itself from unbearable pain by shutting down functions. And she knew that sometimes the key to unlocking those protections wasn't found in medicine or therapy, but in moments of genuine connection, in safety, in love. Can I try something? She asked. Sin looked confused but nodded. Rita shifted in her seat, turning to face him fully. I want you to trust me, completely. Can you do that? Another nod. His eyes were wary but willing. Close your eyes. He did. Rita placed one hand on his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Placed the other on his throat, gentle but firm over his larynx. I need you to think about something happy, a memory from before the accident, a good memory with Dal Sung. Sin's face tightened with pain. I know it hurts, but happy first, pain later. Think about your brother when he was alive and you were both safe. A good day. The best day. Under her hand, she felt Sin's heartbeat slow, felt him breathe deeper. Now I want you to picture telling me about that memory. Out loud. Imagine the words in your mouth, the shape of them. Don't force them. Just imagine. Rita's nursing training kicked in. She knew that psychogenic mutism was held in place by fear, by the brain's conviction that speaking would somehow bring back the trauma. You're safe now, Sin. Dal Sung is gone, and that's terrible. But you're alive, and he'd want you to live fully, to speak, to laugh, to be whole. She felt something shift under her fingers, a vibration, small but real. That's it, she whispered. Whatever you're feeling, follow it. Your voice isn't gone, Sin. It's just scared, and I need you to tell it that it's okay now, that you're ready. The vibration grew stronger. Sin's breath was coming faster, but not with panic, with something else. Anticipation, hope, terror. Think about one word, just one. Something simple, something true. Rita moved her hand from his chest to cup his face, thumb brushing his cheekbone. Think about my name, Rita. 3 syllables, Rita. Can you feel it? Under her other hand, she felt his throat working, muscles engaging that hadn't been used in 2 decades. That's it. You're doing it. Now open your eyes and look at me. Sin's eyes opened, and they were wet with tears and wild with something between terror and hope. Rita held his gaze, never looking away. One word, Sin. My name. I know you can do it. I know it's in there. Say my name. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. The muscles in his throat convulsed. And then, the sound was rough, broken, like vocal cords that had forgotten their purpose. But it was there. Real. Rita's heart exploded with joy, but she kept her voice calm. Yes. Yes, that's it. Keep going. Re. His voice cracked, barely more than a whisper. But God, it was there. Rita. Rita. The word came out complete this time, hoarse and raw, and the most beautiful thing Rita had ever heard. Sin's hands came up to his throat, eyes wide with shock. I spoke. His voice broke on a sob. Rita, I spoke your name. And then he was crying, really crying, decades of silence and grief and trauma pouring out as his voice, broken and beautiful, and finally free, said her name over and over like a prayer. Rita pulled him close, let him shake apart in her arms while his newly freed voice alternated between her name and broken sobs. I've got you, she whispered. You're okay. You did it, Sin. You spoke. Rita, he said again, like he couldn't believe it, like he needed to keep testing this miracle. Rita. They sat in that car for an hour while Sin slowly, carefully started to remember how to use his voice, testing words. Simple ones at first, yes, no, thank you. Then longer sentences. His voice was rusty, hoarse from disuse, but it was there. Real. After 20 years of silence, Quan Sin was speaking again. How did you know? He asked finally, his voice rough but getting stronger. How did you know that would work? Rita brushed tears from her own face. I didn't. Not for sure, but I learned in nursing school about psychogenic disorders, how they're protective mechanisms. And I figured if your voice shut down because of trauma, maybe it could wake up because of safety, because of trust. Because of love, Sin said, the word sounding foreign but right in his newly rediscovered voice. Yeah, Rita admitted. Because of love. I love you, Sin said, testing the words out loud for the first time. God, Rita, I love you so much. And being able to tell you with my voice instead of my phone, his voice cracked with emotion. It's everything. Rita kissed him then, tasting salt from both their tears, feeling the vibration of his voice when he gasped against her mouth. It was messy and desperate and perfect. When they finally broke apart, Sin was smiling, really smiling, wide and genuine and transformed. I need to call Jae-sung, he said, his voice filled with wonder. I need to talk to him. Actually talk. He's going to lose his mind. He's going to think I'm a witch, Rita laughed. A miracle worker. My personal angel. Sin cupped her face. The woman who gave me my voice back. How do I even begin to thank you for that? You can start by using it, Rita said. Talk to me. Tell me everything you've wanted to say for 20 years. So he did. They sat in that car outside her apartment until dawn, and Sin talked. About Dal Sung and the memories he'd kept locked away. About his parents and the empire they'd built. About the loneliness of leadership and the weight of silence. About falling for Rita and fearing he'd never be able to tell her properly. His voice grew stronger with each word, like a muscle being exercised after years of atrophy. It was rough and sometimes cracked, but it was his. And Rita listened to every word, holding his hand, wiping his tears, smiling through her own as he finally shared the parts of himself he kept hidden for so long. The next day, Sin walked into a meeting with a rival gang leader and spoke. His voice was still hoarse, but it was clear. Cho, he said, we need to talk about your people moving into Koreatown. You know that's my territory. Cho's face went pale. How do you? I know everything, Sin interrupted. I always have. The difference is now I can tell you about it before I destroy you. So what's it going to be? Peace or annihilation? The room was silent. Finally, Cho bowed his head slightly. Peace. We'll respect the boundaries. Good. Because I really didn't want to have to explain to Rita why I came home with blood on my suit. The story spread quickly through the underworld. Quan Sin could speak now, and somehow that made him more dangerous, not less. Because he could articulate his threats, could negotiate from a position of strength, could command with words instead of just presence. His power hadn't diminished. It had evolved. But for Rita, the change was purely positive. She got to hear Sin laugh for the first time, a deep, genuine sound that transformed his whole face. Got to listen to him sing along to the radio, off-key and enthusiastic. Got to have actual conversations instead of typing and waiting. "This is still weird," she admitted one night as they cooked dinner in his penthouse. Her mother's treatment was progressing well, and Rita had cautiously started staying over more often. "Hearing you talk instead of watching you type." "Good weird or bad weird?" Sin asked, chopping vegetables with the same precision he applied to everything. "Good weird. Definitely good weird. Though I kind of miss the mysterious silent phase. Very brooding and sexy." Sin laughed, setting down the knife to pull her close. "I can still brood silently if you want. I've had 20 years of practice." "Nah, I like hearing you. Like knowing what you're thinking without having to wait for you to type it." She kissed him softly. Though the typing was romantic in its own way. Very deliberate, every word carefully chosen. "I still choose my words carefully," Sin murmured against her lips. "Some habits die hard. But Rita, being able to tell you I love you with my voice, hearing myself say it, it makes it more real somehow, more permanent." "I love you too," Rita said, "and I'm so proud of you. For fighting through the fear, for trusting me enough to be vulnerable." They finished cooking together, moving around the kitchen in comfortable synchronicity. This was what Rita loved most. Not the expensive penthouse or the fancy cars, but these quiet domestic moments. Cooking dinner, watching movies, falling asleep tangled together. Normal things that felt extraordinary because they were doing them together. 6 months after Sin found his voice, Rita's mother was approved for a lung transplant. The call came at 3 a.m., jolting them both awake. Rita's hands shook as she answered. "Hello? Yes, this is she. Oh my God. Okay. Yes, we'll be there in 30 minutes. Thank you." She hung up, turned to Sin with tears streaming down her face. "They have lungs for her. A match. We need to go now." Sin was already moving, grabbing clothes, his phone. "I'll drive. You call your mother. Make sure she's ready." They made it to the hospital in 20 minutes. Sin's driving possibly illegal but efficient. Rita's mother was already there, being prepped, looking terrified but hopeful. "Baby girl," she said when Rita rushed in. "This is really happening." "It's really happening, Mama." Rita hugged her carefully, mindful of the IV lines. "You're going to get new lungs and breathe easy again, and maybe even dance at my wedding someday." Her mother's eyes went to Sin, who stood respectfully near the door. "That the man who's been taking care of my daughter? Who got me into that trial?" "Yes, Mama, this is Sin." Sin stepped forward and to Rita's surprise bowed formally. "Mrs. Okonkwo, it's an honor to finally meet you properly." His voice was respectful, careful. "Your daughter saved my life in ways I'm still discovering. Helping you was the least I could do." Rita's mother studied him with sharp eyes. "You love her? More than anything. You treat her right? Because I didn't raise my baby to settle for less than she deserves." "I know I don't deserve her," Sin said honestly, "but I'm trying every day to become worthy of her love. And I promise you, Mrs. Okonkwo, I will spend my life making sure she's happy, safe, and knows how extraordinary she is." Rita's mother smiled. "Good answer. Now you two get out of here and let them do their work." "Rita, honey, I'll see you on the other side." The surgery took 8 hours. Rita paced the waiting room while Sin made phone calls to keep his empire running remotely. But every time Rita's anxiety spiked, he was there, holding her hand, bringing her coffee, speaking soft reassurances in that voice she'd helped him find. "She's strong," he told Rita for the 100th time. "She's a fighter, like her daughter." When the surgeon finally emerged smiling, Rita's legs nearly gave out. The surgery was a success. The lungs are functioning well. She'll need months of recovery and anti-rejection medication. But Mrs. Okonkwo should have a long, healthy life ahead of her. Rita sobbed with relief, and Sin caught her, held her up, murmured words of joy and gratitude into her hair. 3 days later, when Rita's mother was awake and recovering well, she pulled Rita aside. "That man loves you something fierce," she said, her voice still hoarse from the breathing tube, but stronger than it had been in years. "I can see it in how he looks at you, like you're his whole world. I love him too, Mama. So much it scares me sometimes." "Good love should scare you a little. Means it's real. Means it matters." Her mother squeezed Rita's hand. But baby, I need to ask, is he safe? His business, whatever it really is. Are you safe with him? Rita had been waiting for this question, had debated how much to tell her mother. In the end, she chose honesty. His business is complicated, dangerous even. But Mama, he keeps that world separate from me, and he's working on transitioning to legitimate operations. For me? For us? You trust him? With my life. Her mother nodded slowly. Then I trust him too. Lord knows I didn't raise you to be stupid. You see something in him worth the risk, I believe you. Just promise me you'll be careful, that you'll protect yourself. I promise. Rita kissed her mother's forehead. And Mama, he wants to marry me. Hasn't officially proposed yet, but he's mentioned it multiple times. Her mother's eyes filled with tears, happy ones this time. Oh, baby, my baby girl getting married. Your daddy would be so proud. Of you, of how strong you've become, of the man you found. I wish he could meet Sin. He can see him. I believe that. And honey, if this man loves you enough to find his voice again after 20 years, your daddy would approve. That's real love, the kind worth fighting for. The proposal came 2 months later, after Rita's mother was finally home and recovering well. Sin had been planning it for weeks, though Rita had no idea. He'd asked her mother's permission formally, had picked out a ring with Jae-sung's help, though Jae-sung later admitted Sin had ignored all his suggestions and chosen something uniquely perfect. It happened at the diner where they'd met. Sin had rented out Stella's for the evening, paid Tommy and Destiny and the owner generously to close early and help set up. When Rita arrived thinking they were just having dinner, she walked into a space transformed. Fairy lights everywhere, candles on every table, flowers, her favorite, purple irises in every corner. And in the center booth, their booth, Sin waited in a suit but also wearing one of the diner's aprons. Sin, what is all this? Rita asked, overwhelmed. He stood, moved toward her, and took both her hands. This is where you first showed me kindness, where you looked at a silent stranger and chose to see him as human, where you refused my money because you had integrity, where I started falling in love with you without even realizing it. His voice was steady, confident, everything it hadn't been 7 months ago. I was broken when I walked in here that first day, silent for 20 years, convinced I'd never be whole again. And then you smiled at me and called me mystery man and served me coffee, and something inside me woke up. He led her to their booth, where a small box sat on the table. You gave me my voice back, Rita, gave me hope, gave me a reason to want more than just survival. And I want to spend the rest of my life giving you everything you deserve. Sin dropped to one knee, and Rita's hands flew to her mouth. Rita Okonkwo, you are the bravest, most compassionate, most extraordinary woman I've ever known. You make me want to be better than I am, to build something legitimate and good, to use my voice for more than just business and threats. You make me want to be worthy of you, even though I know I never fully will be. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, purple sapphire surrounded by diamonds, unique and stunning. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend my life making you happy? Will you trust me with your heart, even knowing all my flaws and darkness? Please say yes. I need to hear myself say it. I love you, Rita, so much. Please marry me. Rita was crying, laughing, nodding all at once. Yes, God, yes, of course, yes. I love you too, you impossible, wonderful man. Sin slid the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then stood and pulled her into a kiss that tasted of tears and promises, and a future they'd built together from silence. The wedding was planned for 6 months later, enough time for Rita's mother to be strong enough to walk her down the aisle. It was a fusion of cultures, Korean traditions blended with Rita's Nigerian heritage. A ceremony conducted partially in English, partially in Igbo, with Korean elements woven throughout. Rita wore a dress that incorporated both traditional Korean hanbok elements and Nigerian Ankara fabric, stunning purple and gold that made her look like royalty. Sin wore a traditional Korean hanbok in deep blue, then changed into a Western suit for the reception. When he saw Rita walking toward him, his voice caught, and for a moment she feared he'd lost it again. But then he spoke, clear and strong. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. They wrote their own vows. Rita went first. Sin, you once told me that I gave you your voice back, but what you don't realize is that you gave me mine too. Before you, I was surviving, not living, working myself to exhaustion, building walls around my heart, convinced that I'd already had my chance at love and lost it. You showed me that real love doesn't come when you're looking for it. It comes when you're brave enough to be honest. When you're vulnerable enough to be seen, she continued, tears streaming. You make me feel extraordinary, not in spite of my struggles, but because you see how I've fought through them. You've never tried to save me. You've equipped me to save myself. You've been my partner, my teammate, my absolute equal. And I promise to stand beside you as you continue becoming the man you want to be, to support your dreams, to call you out when you're being ridiculous, and to love you fiercely, completely, for all the days of my life. Then Sin, using the voice Rita had helped him find. Rita, 20 years ago, I lost my voice and thought I lost everything that mattered. I learned to live in silence, to communicate through gestures and texts, to become someone defined by what I couldn't do. But silence is also absence, and I didn't realize how much I was absent from my own life until you walked in and demanded that I be present, be whole, be brave enough to feel again. His voice grew stronger. You performed a miracle, not just helping me speak again, but showing me that I was worth the effort, that my voice mattered, that I mattered beyond my power, beyond my family name, beyond my empire. You saw me, the real me, the boy who lost his brother, the man trying to honor his parents' legacy, the person terrified of loving someone and losing them too. And you loved me anyway. I promise to use the voice you helped me find to always tell you the truth, to speak words of love and encouragement, to argue when we disagree because healthy relationships need honest communication, to sing to our children someday, even though I'm terrible at it, to tell you every single day that you are my miracle, my salvation, my home. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our cultures, both our families, both our dreams. And I promise that every word I speak for the rest of my life will be a testament to the woman who believed I could speak again. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Sin pulled Rita close and spoke against her lips before kissing her. I love you, Mrs. Kwan, and I'll never stop saying it. The reception was a celebration that blended Korean and Nigerian traditions. They had both bulgogi and jollof rice, both a traditional Korean pie bake ceremony and Nigerian wine carrying, both K-pop and Afrobeats on the dance floor. Rita's mother, healthy and glowing, danced with Rita and Sin both, tears of joy streaming down her face. My baby, she said to Rita during their mother-daughter dance, you found a good one, a real one. Hold on tight. I will, Mama, I promise. Jae-sung gave a speech that had the whole room laughing and crying by turns, talking about how he'd watched Sin grow from a traumatized boy into a powerful but lonely man, and how Rita had completed the transformation by bringing joy back into his life. I thought nothing could surprise me about Sin anymore, Jae-sung said, raising his glass. But then he came to me 7 months ago and spoke my name. Actually spoke after 20 years of silence. And I knew that Rita wasn't just special, she was magic. To the bride and groom, may your love continue to work miracles. The party lasted until 2 a.m., but Sin and Rita snuck out around midnight, exhausted and happy and ready to start their honeymoon. They spent 2 weeks in South Korea. Sin showing Rita his parents' homeland, the places he'd lived as a child before moving to LA. They visited his brother's grave, where Sin finally spoke words he'd been unable to say for 20 years. Dal-sung, I brought someone to meet you. Her name is Rita, and she's going to be your sister-in-law now. I think you'd have loved her. She's brave and kind, and she helped me find my voice again. I wish you were here to meet her, to give me advice, to be my best man like we always planned. Sin's voice cracked, and Rita held his hand tightly. I miss you every day, but I'm living now, really living, not just surviving, and I think you'd be proud of that. I think you'd want that for me. He placed purple irises on the grave, Rita's favorite flowers. I'll bring her back to visit, I promise. And when we have kids someday, I'll tell them all about their uncle who made me laugh, who protected me, who I lost too soon. You'll never be forgotten. Rita cried beside him, understanding the significance of this moment. Sin was finally saying goodbye, finally releasing the guilt that had held his voice hostage for 2 decades. When they left the cemetery, he seemed lighter, more at peace. Thank you, he told Rita, for being here, for helping me do that. Always, she promised. Whatever you need, wherever you need to go, I'm with you. The rest of the trip was joyful exploration. Rita fell in love with Korean food, with the bustling markets of Seoul, with the serene temples and the modern cityscape. Sin was a patient guide translating and explaining, clearly proud to show her his heritage. They visited museums and palaces, hiked in national parks, ate street food from vendors who remembered Sin's family. Your parents would be proud of you, Rita told him one evening as they watched the sunset over Seoul. Not just because of the empire you've built, but because of the man you've become. Honorable, generous, brave enough to feel again. They'd love you, Sin said. My mother especially. She always said I needed someone who wouldn't be intimidated by me, who'd push back and challenge me. That's you. Your dad would pretend to be stern, but secretly be thrilled. He wanted me to find balance, business and family, power and love. I think he'd see that I finally have. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights come on below them. Sin spoke again. I used to hate Seoul, hated that it reminded me of everything I lost. But being here with you, it feels different, like I can make new memories, happy ones. We'll come back, Rita promised. Every year, we'll bring our kids someday, teach them about where you came from. Our kids, Sin repeated, voice soft with wonder. I like the sound of that. Me too, Rita leaned into him. Though fair warning, if they have your stubbornness and my attitude, we're going to be in trouble. Sin laughed, the sound rich and free. Bring it on. I've handled rival gangs. I can handle strong-willed children. They returned to Los Angeles, refreshed and ready to start their new life together. Sin had been serious about transitioning his operations. With Rita's support and Jae-sung's help, he spent the next year systematically converting the family empire from criminal enterprises to legitimate businesses. It wasn't easy. Some of the old guard resisted. Some rivals saw it as weakness and tried to move in. But Sin had learned that speaking didn't make him less dangerous. It made him more effective. He could negotiate better, could explain his vision clearly, could bring people along instead of just commanding through silence and fear. Slowly, the Quan organization transformed. The gambling dens became investment firms. The protection rackets became security consulting. The smuggling operations became international trade. It took 3 years, but eventually Sin could honestly tell Rita that his business was clean. Legal. The past still existed. He couldn't erase the things he'd done, but the present and future were different. I did it, he told her one night, exhausted but triumphant. Everything's legitimate now. No more looking over our shoulders. No more worrying about raids or rival attacks. We're clean. Rita, 7 months pregnant with their first child, pulled him close. I'm so proud of you. I know how hard that was, how much you gave up. I didn't give up anything that mattered, Sin corrected. I traded power built on fear for something more sustainable. And I gained everything. You, our baby, a future I can actually be proud of. He placed his hand on her rounded belly, felt their daughter kick. She's going to grow up knowing her father is a businessman, not a criminal. That's worth everything. Their daughter was born on a spring morning, healthy and loud and absolutely perfect. They named her Angela Dal Sung Kwan, Angela for the angel who'd saved Sin's life and voice, Dal Sung to honor the brother he'd lost. When Sin held her for the first time, he spoke to her in Korean and English both. Hello, little one. I'm your father, and I promise to use my voice to tell you every day how loved you are, how special, how anything is possible if you're brave enough to try. Rita watched from the hospital bed, exhausted and overwhelmed, and happier than she'd ever been. This was her family. Her husband who'd found his voice again, her daughter who would grow up knowing she was loved, her mother healthy and glowing as she held her granddaughter. Everything she'd dreamed of and more. 5 years later, Rita stood in the community center Sin had built, a massive complex that provided services to both Korean and African immigrant communities. Medical care, job training, ESL classes, after-school programs. It was funded entirely by Sin's now legitimate businesses and run by Rita, who'd finally finished her nursing degree with Sin's support. The center had become Rita's life's work. She ran free health clinics, oversaw youth programs, and personally handled the crisis intervention team that helped families navigate immigration, healthcare, and housing challenges. She'd found her calling, not waiting tables, not even traditional nursing, but this, community work that honored both her training and her heart. Sin was there too, teaching a business class to young entrepreneurs from immigrant families. Rita watched through the window as he spoke confidently, gesturing to emphasize points, his voice strong and clear. No one who saw him now would guess he'd spent 20 years in silence, would know that this powerful, articulate man had once been unable to speak. Their daughter Angela toddled around the center's daycare, multilingual already, switching between English and Korean and the Igbo phrases Rita's mother taught her. She was bright and fearless and absolutely adored by both sides of the family. Sin's traditionally stern relatives and Rita's boisterous Nigerian family had learned to coexist at birthday parties and holidays, united by love for this perfect little girl who embodied both cultures. "Mama," Angela called, running over with a drawing. "I made a picture. It's you and Daddy and me and Grandma and Uncle Jay and everyone." Rita knelt down, studying the crayon artwork, a cluster of stick figures holding hands. "It's beautiful, baby. Should we hang it in Daddy's office?" "Yes, so he remembers we love him when he's working." Angela kissed Rita's cheek messily and ran off to play again. Sin appeared at Rita's side, sliding an arm around her waist. "How's your day?" he asked, voice warm with affection. "Good. Busy. We had 40 patients through the clinic, 3 families that need housing assistance, and 1 kid I'm pretty sure is going to be a doctor someday based on how many questions he asked about anatomy." "So, a normal day." Sin kissed her temple. "I love watching you work. You light up." "I learned from the best," Rita said. "You showed me that you could take resources built from dark places and turn them into something that helps people. That redemption is possible. You showed me that I was worth redeeming." Sin turned her to face him fully. "Rita, do you remember that first day when I walked into Stella's and you served me coffee? Of course. You were all mysterious and intense and wouldn't talk to me." "I couldn't talk. Couldn't. I was trapped in silence, convinced I'd never escape." His hand came up to cup her face. "And then you smiled at me and treated me like a person, not a puzzle or a threat. You had no idea who I was, what I'd done, how much power I had. You just saw someone who might need kindness." "Where is this going?" Rita asked, smiling. "I'm just reflecting. 5 years married, 6 years since we met, and every single day I wake up grateful that you refused my $80 tip, that you insisted on seeing me as human, that you were brave enough to fall for a silent criminal and stubborn enough to help me find my voice." "Best decision I ever made," Rita said, "even when you're being impossibly stubborn, which I learned from you." Sin pulled her close, speaking softly so only she could hear. "I love you, Rita Kwan. Thank you for performing miracles, for saving me in every way a person can be saved." "I love you too," Rita whispered back. "And Sin? You saved me right back. Gave me a life I never imagined. Helped me become someone I'm proud of. We saved each other." "Best kind of love story," Sin agreed. Angela came running back, demanding attention, and they broke apart to scoop her up between them. Their daughter laughed, sandwiched between her parents, secure in the knowledge that she was loved absolutely. Around them, the community center buzzed with activity, lives being changed, futures being built, hope being distributed one family at a time. This was what Rita's miracle had created, not just Sin finding his voice, though that was significant, but everything that came after. The choice to go legitimate, the decision to build instead of destroy, the commitment to use power for good, the family they'd created from broken pieces, the love that had overcome impossible odds. 10 years after that first meeting, Rita and Sin sat on the porch of their house in View Park, watching the sunset. Their daughter Angela was 9 now, starting to ask deeper questions about her parents' history. Their son, James Okonkwo Kwan, was 4, all energy and mischief. Rita's mother lived in the guest house, still healthy, still fierce, still delighted by her grandchildren. "Angela asked me today why I don't talk in old videos," Sin said, sipping tea. "The ones from before we met." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. A simpler version, but the truth. That I lost someone I loved, and it hurt so badly that I forgot how to speak. That sometimes pain can take things from us, but love can give them back." "And what did she say?" Sin smiled. "She said, 'So Mama fixed you?' And I said yes, Mama helped me fix myself. Then she asked if that meant we were broken together, and I said no. We're whole together. That's different. Rita's eyes filled with tears. That's perfect. She gets it. She does. Both our kids do. They understand that people can be broken and heal, that family is chosen as much as born, that love is action, not just feeling. They sat in comfortable silence, fingers linked, watching their children play in the yard. This was peace. This was happiness. Not the absence of struggle. They still faced challenges, still had hard days, but the presence of partnership, of commitment, of love that had been tested and proven strong. Do you ever regret it? Rita asked suddenly. Giving up the empire? The power? Sin considered the question seriously. I regret nothing that led me here. The empire was my father's dream, not mine. My dream was always simpler, to be seen, to be valued beyond my utility, to build something good. I have all of that now. I have you and our children and meaningful work and my voice. Why would I regret trading violence for this? Just checking, making sure you don't resent me for the sacrifices. Rita, Sin turned to her, voice firm. You didn't make me sacrifice anything. You helped me choose what mattered. There's a difference. And I choose this life every single day. Choose you. Choose us. Choose the man I'm becoming over the man I was. He kissed her softly. No regrets, only gratitude. Good, because I'm not giving you back. Rita grinned. You're stuck with me, mystery man. Still calling me that after 10 years? Always. You'll always be a little mysterious, a little dangerous, a lot wonderful. She rested her head on his shoulder. My miracle man who learned to speak again because I touched his neck and told him he could. Our miracle, Sin corrected. What happened that night in the car? That was both of us. Your knowledge and intuition, my trust and willingness to try. We made that miracle together, just like we've made everything else. They watched the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in oranges and purples. Behind them, they could hear their children's laughter, Rita's mother calling them in for dinner, Jae-sung's car pulling up. He came for family dinner every Sunday now. Uncle Jae, who'd never married but loved their children like his own. I never thought I'd have this, Sin admitted. A family, a home, a life built on love instead of fear. Me neither, Rita agreed. I thought I'd work at that diner forever, taking care of Mama, surviving but not living. And then you walked in and changed everything. You changed everything, Sin insisted. I just walked in. You chose to see past the silence, past the danger, past everything that should have made you run. You chose me. Best choice I ever made. Second best, Sin corrected with a smile. First was refusing that $80 tip. If you'd taken it, I might never have come back. Oh, you'd have come back. You were hooked from the first coffee. Rita poked him playfully. Admit it. I admit nothing except that I love you and that I'm grateful every single day that you performed your miracle, that you gave me my voice and my life back. Angela and James came running up, demanding their parents come inside. Dinner was ready. Grandma had made jollof rice and kimchi jjigae, the fusion cuisine that defined their household. Uncle Jae had brought dessert. It was time to eat, to laugh, to be family. Rita and Sin stood, hand in hand, and followed their children inside, into the warmth, into the noise, into the life they'd built together, from silence and secrets, from pain and hope, from a chance meeting in a diner and a miracle performed in a car. The mute Korean Mafia boss who hadn't spoken for 20 years, and the black waitress who'd helped him find his voice again. Their story had started with silence and would continue with a lifetime of words. Words of love, words of encouragement, words that built instead of destroyed. And every single day, Sin used his voice to tell Rita what he'd spent 20 years unable to say. I love you. Thank you. You saved me. You're my miracle. And every single day, Rita responded with the truth that would never change. You saved me right back. We're not broken anymore. We're whole. We're home. We're exactly where we're meant to be.